Hey, good afternoon. Dave from Phoenix Fruit Farm. Today we're going to kind of make the first video in a series of the maple syrup making process, I guess. And we're going to just talk today a little bit about the different methods of collecting, and then, in the next video we'll probably get into the tapping, and then after that, gathering and such as that. So, and the cooking, of course. But today, we're just going to talk a little bit about how I gather my sap, and there's lots of ways to do it. I'll tell you right now what I used to do. I used to use a tap like this. You can see it's this portion with you drill your 5/16 hole. I went to 5/16 a few years ago because they decided that you don't need to drill much bigger hole than that to get and still have the same production. And the smaller the hole you drill in your tree, the better off you are. Makes it less, takes less time for it to heal and such as that. So anyway, this tap is what I used to use. And you can see it has a downspout on it. So what I did, I had buckets, and I had lids for all my buckets with a hole drilled in them that was big enough for this down tube to go into. And the main reason for that was to keep snow and rain and everything else out of the sap that you're collecting, because there's enough water in it as it is, so without adding any more to it. And another good reason is because this time of the year everybody's looking for that sap, and you'll get if you don't have lids on your buckets and they're sitting on the ground like mine were, deer will come along and they'll stick their head right down in it and drink out of it. And of course they're shedding this time of the year, and so you'll have a whole bucket full of deer hair in there. Yeah, it makes quite a mess, but I guess it doesn't hurt anything. So anyway, that's how I used to do it. At one time, I used a few of these, and this, of course, is the bigger one, the 7/16 hole it would have took, and then you could, put that into the tree, tap it in here, and hang a bucket on it, of course, and then let it drip in that way. And then there's just this that I happen to pick up. This is patented in 1888. This is an old cast iron one that they made. I'm not exactly sure how that works. I've never tried to do it, but I guess it looks like about a 7/16 or half-inch hole you'd use. But anyway, there's just all kinds of different methods and things that people use. But I've now gone away from the buckets, and I'll tell you the main reason I did was because of the mess at the end of the year. I am tapping about 100 to 125 trees. I tapped 125 last year, and last year I went to the system I'm going to show you today. And like I said, buckets at the end of the year, you got to wash them. You can't just stick them together and pile them up, or you'll never get them apart again. And not aside from the fact they'll be full of black mold if you don't get that sap cleaned out of them, and they're unusable probably because you'd never get them apart. So anyway, I decided I don't like washing buckets anymore, and I decided to go to this method that I'm going to show you. If you're only going to do 10, 15, 20 trees, do buckets. It's not a big deal. But this method I've got now involves a plastic bag for gathering. And I'm going to show you how I do it, how they go together. It's called a sap sack holder, by the way, and you can see they're made up in Canada by the CDL, but I buy them from a place called Roth Sugar Bush up in Cadott, Wisconsin. They really are a pretty big distributor and seller for everything maple syrup, and they have a lot of stuff for the hobbyists. Of course, they have a website, and you can go and you can buy stuff through them. And that's where I get most of my stuff. And they're good to deal with. So anyway, you take your bag and you turn it like that, 1.5 inches, 2 inches maybe. And you take this part and you put it over it like that. And then you want to put it up in the turned over portion that you made there. All the way on both ends. And you're going to have this portion here hanging over. You want to fold that up in on both sides. You'll do that. Fold it up in there. And you want it to stay up in there, of course. So you get it up in and push a little bit. And then you get it like that. Then this holder, you can see there's these channels on the inside here. And so what you're going to do, you're going to slide this in. And of course, the turned up portion is going to be locked in then by those flanges in there. So you put it in like that. And it's kind of locked in like that. So they also require that you have a special tap for these. And this is kind of what it looks like. It's just, like you say, you drill the 5/16 hole, you drive it into the tree a little bit. You don't never want to get carried away driving your taps in, because some of the smaller trees, you can, believe it or not, you can split them from the top to the bottom if you get too carried away. They're kind of touchy that way, so you don't want to overdrive. Well, anyway, so then, of course, it's in the tree here. Then you got the hole in here. It goes on, and it hangs on there like that. So it's kind of handy that way. I don't like throwing anything away, but, you know, it's a single use, I guess. At the end of the year, I don't have to wash it. I can just take it apart and throw it away and store these little things rather than 125 buckets. Disadvantages, I guess the biggest disadvantage I see is that if you get a bag full of sap and then you get like a cold snap comes along, you'll have a bag full of ice here. Well, not completely. There'll be some liquid in it, but anything that isn't of a high enough sugar value will, you know, freeze. And just so you know, whether you use a bucket or whether you use these bags, the ice that forms in them, I've checked it. I've got a hydrometer made just for measuring the sugar content of maple syrup. Anyway, the ice that's in your bucket or in your bag doesn't have any sugar in it. You might as well just throw it away. Don't think you're doing yourself a favor by keeping it. So that's just a word to the wise. Like I said, I'll just cover some of the other people use. I mean, there's probably a lot of them, but the bigger producers, of course, like I know a couple of Amish guys down south of Tomah who they're going to be tapping, you know, I believe they told me they do between 2,000 and 3,000 trees. And most of what they do is hooked up to a gravity feed system. Of course, they're down in the hills down there too, so it helps a little bit. But at any rate, you'll run a main line up through your woods, and you'll have lateral lines that run off that go to the trees. And so everything that flows out flows down the hill to a large container, gravity fed, and they'll like catch it in there, and then they can pump it out into something else, and then take it to their evaporator, you know. So they're making a lot of syrup, though, you know. And these guys aren't. If you think 2,000 or 3,000 trees is a lot, well, it's not. the big producers do way, way more than that. Some of our friends up in Canada, hey, they are huge. They're probably tapping, 20,000 trees, or something like that. I'd look it up on the internet, I guess, if you want to, what the biggest ones are. But even some people in our area within 50 miles here or so, over toward Cashton and La Crosse and in the Driftless area over there, there's some lot bigger producers than that over there too. So, but the guys that are really big, they use a vacuum system, pretty much hook it all up like the gravity feed, except it's hooked up to a vacuum pump down at the end, and they're actually sucking that sap right out of the tree, so it makes for a much higher production also. So that's just for your information a little bit. So anyway, we got that ready to go. I've got like 125 of these to do, so I guess I'm going to do that many this year. So with that, we're just going to end this portion, and we will get back probably within a week or a week and a half when I start tapping. I'll just tell you it's the 14th of February today. Our part of the state, generally, I always figure, and everybody else does, about the 1st of March, you're going to figure is when you'll have the best conditions for a sap run. Of course, some of our weather has been a little fickle. We've had some fairly warm days now, and there are some people who went out and tapped the trees, and my neighbor, he was all excited. He wanted to get his tapped, and I said, well, if I was you, I'd be a little patient, but I think he did it anyway, but I've done it early. There's a danger in going too early because your holes can actually dry up if you don't have good weather for it to run. And if they set too long, like 10 days or so, and they'll dry up and start to heal, and then you're to the point where you got to figure, am I going to re-tap them or what, So I try not to get carried away. So anyway, with that, like I said, it'll be a week and a half before I start, and we'll make a little video about out in the woods tapping trees. So, thanks for looking today. Give her a thumbs up and subscribe if you like. Dave from Phoenix Fruit Farm. See you later.